Hey everyone, notes 2.6 are on ratios and percents, and this is the first part of these videos. Notes 2.7 will be on part 2. And the first thing I want to do is define what a percent is, and it's just a ratio that is written as parts per 100. So a percent is literally per means for, every cent means 100. So you're figuring out how many parts there are for every 100 parts. So just like if you have a mark in a class and you get an 80, that's an 80% because you got 80 marks out of 100 marks. So how do we convert from a percent to a fraction? All we have to do is just divide that percent by 100, because a percent is always out of 100, okay? And then we would reduce that fraction. To convert a percent to a decimal, you just divide by 100. You literally will just divide that number by 100 and you will get a decimal. Here's a fraction you would write over 100 and then you would reduce. And I'll show you how to do all of these in a couple examples in a minute, okay? So now how to convert to a percent from a fraction. So here all you have to do is divide the fraction, and then this time you're going to multiply by 100. So if you're given the percent, you would divide. If you're given the number and you're trying to find it as a percent, you would multiply. And same thing here, from a decimal, you would just multiply by 100. So to find a percent, you multiply. To convert a percent to something else, you divide. Let's try some examples right here. So the first example that we have is 25%. So to find out what it is as a decimal, I would literally just divide 25 by 100, because that's what it says here, divide it by 100. And 25% means it's 25 out of 100. So let's go ahead and type that into our calculator. So 25 out of 100 would give me 0.25. So this is our decimal. Now as a fraction, we would still write it as percent out of 100, but then we would reduce. So this is 25 over 100. And when I reduce that, they're both divisible by 25, so I would get 1 over 4. Now, how do I get 1 over 4 easily? Desmos is nice, it'll tell you. So let me show you. So see here how we got 0.25? If I click on this button in the right-hand corner, it changes between decimals and fractions. So see here how it's 1/4? So it's 1/4 in simplest form. Okay, so now for our next one, we're given our answer as a fraction. So to convert from a fraction, we would divide the fraction right here and then multiply by 100. So let's go ahead and try that. So I would divide 2 divided by 3, and then my answer there, I would multiply by 100. So I get 66.66666 repeating. I'll round it to the nearest whole percent. So to the nearest whole percent, this 6 right here would bump this 6 up to a 7. So we would say 67%. And then as a decimal, it would just be 0.67, because when I divide 67 by 100, I get 0.67. Right here, see how we get 0.67? But a quick note too is that all you have to do when you're changing from percents to decimals is you can just move the decimal place over 2 times. That's the same thing as dividing by 100. So 1, 2, move it over 2 times. That's how we get 0.25 right here. Okay, 67%, move it over 2 times. That's how we get 0.67 right here. Okay, now to go from our decimal here, this 0.45, to a percent, this time we would multiply by 100. So I would multiply 0.45 by 100, which is 45 right here as shown in Desmos. But all I have to do is just move the decimal place over 2 times. This time we're going to move it to the right because we're trying to find a percent. For a decimal, we would move it to the left. So we would get 45%. Okay, now to write this as a fraction, it would be 45 over 100. But then when I type that into Desmos, I get 0.45, which is what we were given originally, and then we can convert that into a fraction and it gives it to us in simplest or lowest form. So this would be 9 out of 20. Okay, next one, 8%. You want to be really careful of 8%. When you move the decimal place over to figure this out right here, it would be 1, 2 right here, and we fill this in with a 0. So this is 0.08 right here, or we could just do 8 divided by 100 in decimals, and we get 0.08, okay? And then as a fraction, it would be 2 out of 25. So as a decimal, 0.08. As a fraction, 2 out of 25. So here we can say this is 8 out of 100, which we just found out reduces to 2 out of 25, okay? In our next example right here, we have 0.265. So to find out what this is as a percent, I would have to multiply that by 100, or I could just move the decimal place over 2 times. So when I move the decimal place over 2 times, just be careful. The new decimal place is now between the 6 and the 5. So it's 26.5%. Or if you look here, 0.265, multiply that by 100, and we get 26.5, okay? Now as a fraction, it's out of 100, so we get 26.5 out of 100, but we cannot have decimals in our fractions, so we can just convert our fraction, and it tells us it's 53 out of 200. So this would be 26.5 out of 100, but then when we convert it, it would end up becoming 53 out of 200. And then in our last example here, if you have like 37 out of 100, I can automatically see right here that this is 37% because percent is out of 100. And since this is already out of 100, it's nice and easy for me, which is 0.37 as a decimal. So now let's use that information to answer these questions here. So I want to find 10% of $365. So the first thing I want to do is convert this 10% to a decimal. So we know that 10% is out of 100. So I could do 10 out of 100, and then when I divide that, I would get 0.10. Or I could just move the decimal place over 2 times and I would still get that 0.10. Now to find 10% of 365, this number right here, all I have to do is take 365 and multiply that by our 10% as a decimal here. And when I type that into my calculator, I would get $36.50. And that's my answer over here. For this next one, we want to find 8% of 85 kilograms. So I need to write 8% as a decimal. So 8 out of 100, when I divide that in my calculator, I get 0.08. Or I could take 8% and just move the decimal place over 2 times and I get 0.08. So now if I want to find 8% of 85 kilograms, I would just take 85 and multiply that by this 0.08. So 85 times 0.08 would give me 6.8. So this is 6.8 kilograms. Okay, in our next example, we want to find 30% of 50 meters. So here, 30% right here, I need to write that as a decimal. So it's 30 out of 100. And when I divide that, I get 0.30 or 0.3. It's the same thing. And then 30%, if I were to move the decimal place over, I would get that 0.30. Okay? And I want to find out what 30% of 50 meters is. So I take 50 meters and I multiply that by that 30%, 0.30. And a quick note, you can type in 0.30 or 0.3 and it gives you the same answer. Just like up here, I did times 0.1, it could have been 0.10, and it'll still give you the same answer. You'll get 15, in this example, you'll get 15 meters. And then in our last example, this one's a little bit trickier. I want to find 125% of 120. So this time we should get a bigger number because it's more than the full amount. Okay, so 125%, I'm going to convert that to a decimal first. So 125% is always out of 100. When I divide this, I get 1.25. Or I could take the 125, move the decimal place over 2 times, and I would get 1.25. And I want to find 125% of 120 grams. So I'm going to multiply 120 by 1.25, and let's see what we get. And we get 150 grams. And that's it for this video. We'll learn more about percents in our next video, but that's all we have to do here. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in class. Bye.